Hello again, friends. Welcome to a very special tutorial. Not only because this will be the last Unity tutorial I will be making for a while, but also because today we will be adding SteamVR input and hands into our mod. Something very much requested, of course. Only thing I have to say is that it was surprisingly easy, a lot easier than I expected it would be, so it should be a nice and easy tutorial then. Let me guide you through it. So if you don't have one already, for this part of the tutorial it is important again to have a empty Unity project of the exact same version as your game. And you also need to have the SteamVR add-on installed and the asset bundle browser. Let's see how we're going to do this. So what we're going to do today is add motion controls input. So SteamVR input in general, which includes buttons, poses of the hands and everything. And you also want to add hands. And Valve were very nice to supply us with some default hands in their plugin. So if you go to SteamVR Prefabs, there are a few gloves to choose from. You can see them here. You can inspect them a bit. Oops. These are the infamous slim gloves I've seen in a lot of projects already, and the one you are seeing in my project as well. And there's even an alien glove for people who have only 3 fingers or who like to experiment with skeletal poses. Alright, so why am I showing you this? It is because you need to select the glove model you want to export and assign it to a bundle. So if you don't know about bundles, see my previous tutorial about importing assets. And because this is no different than any other asset. You just assign it to a bundle, then export that bundle and import it. I've already did this. I've done them to my Skybox asset bundle. Same for the right glove. Don't forget to do it for both hands. They're in the right bundle. Then all we need to do is go to Window, Asset Bundle Browser, check the right bundle, it's included, and all the other things it requires are auto-included as well. That's nice. Then all you have to do is click Build and copy those over, but this is the same process as the last tutorial, so I won't bother you with it any further. It's all exactly the same process. But you want to do it for these gloves, of course. Alright, now for the SteamVR input stuff, we go to Window, SteamVR Input, and here you can see some interesting stuff. There's an action sets island. You normally see a lot more than just a default set. You see some other sets here. You can use those if you want, but I just deleted those, changed this to per hand instead of mirrored, and adjusted the default bindings to what you can see here. So I left in the skeleton left hand, skeleton right hand, deleted all the other stuff and replaced them with the left grab, right grab, etc, etc. It is important, very important of course, that you also have 2 poses. So a left hand pose and a right hand pose. Its name should show what it's supposed to be. its type should be pose. So if you don't know what these are, a boolean is like a yes or no, usually for a button. Vector 1 is for a one-dimensional input, like an axis, like how hard you are pulling a trigger. Vector 2 is usually for joysticks, for 2 dimensions. Vector 3 is for some 3-dimensional stuff. You can make it optional, suggested, or mandatory. Maybe mandatory in the future, but right now we're just trying to get something basic working so we can leave things the way they are by default. Now I've already done all this stuff, but to show you guys how to do it, I'm going to add another action. And this action, I know it's going to be bound to the Oculus Y button, but due to the way SteamVR input is designed, I'm going to name the action itself after its intended function. Switch POV, switch point of view, because that's what I want to do with the button. The button itself can be arbitrarily assigned in the SteamVR bindings later. It's going to be a boolean because it's going to be a button. Suggested is alright. Localization, we don't really care about that at this point. And localized string is button that switches POV from demo mode to first person. There we go, it's that easy. Now we just save and generate. Alright, I think it's going to... It should be alright by now. And now the part where you need your VR stuff set up, the open binding UI. This will open a separate window from which to bind. See, it requires VR, so it starts up VR. Doesn't seem to be doing anything again because I was not in my was not connected with my headset. Let's do that right now. Come on, virtual desktop. There we go. Let's try doing this again. Open binding UI. Doesn't seem to want to click using virtual desktop. Let's just click it manually. There we go. Yeah, normally for me a Firefox window should open with the binding UI. Probably because it does not recognize my headset, so let's reset it, shall we? Alright, I'm in VR right now, should be fine. And if I open the binding UI right now, it will open a window. Just a second. Now it looks like there's something wrong, of course. This is because I'm using an older version of the plugin. I think this was one of the first ones that used the new SteamVR input system. By the way, if you're on a Unity version from before the new SteamVR input system, things will be different for you, and you will have to look that up yourself. But thankfully the old system was a bit less convoluted than this one. Alright, so the only thing you have to do here is replace this number after localhost with, let me check it, number 27062. 27062 and just re-enter the URL. And there we go. This might seem familiar to you as the traditional binding tool for SteamVR stuff. So it recognizes that I've got an Oculus Touch controller on at the moment and has a current binding. This is my old binding setup, which already has left joystick, left grab, left trigger and everything, but there's still one thing missing. Suggested button. Alright, that's what shows up in the description. So we still need to add that single button. And I wanted it to be on the Y button, which is on the left controller, Y button. Then I just select button here. And on click, not on touch, otherwise it will be a bit wonky. I select button that switches the POV from linear mode to first person. What a lengthy description. And there we go. All we have to do now is save this personal binding. You can leave it at default text there. Just for later reference, you can also export the binding file. And something you will probably want to do is replace the default binding after that. There we go. By the way, stuff like left grab can be done in a similar way, but for your hand positions you need to go to poses and select a certain type of data. I select left hand raw data here and just assign left hand pose and right hand pose to the right place. Otherwise you won't be able to get any positional data of your controllers, which is, you know, very important. You'd also have to save it again, but it's already included for my stuff. I won't have to save it again. Let's go back. Current binding, edit it again just to check if everything's alright. Yep, looks alright to me. And bye-bye with that. Bye-bye to the SteamVR input window. We won't need this anymore. But don't close the Unity editor yet. We also need to build our game first. Let's go to build settings. These settings should be fine. And just build it to your build folder. It says build here, so it's selected my old build folder. You can also get a hint as to where the action manifest is located here. So in project, assets, no. Anyway, our project is built. Let's extract the files we need. So go to data, streaming assets, SteamVR, actions.json. You know what, let's copy the whole SteamVR folder. And we want to copy this to our game folder. Go to the game data, go to streaming assets, and if there is no SteamVR folder here, just copy the SteamVR folder itself. So that you have a SteamVR folder here, which contains your actions. Now double check, to check if things went right, you can go to the bindings for your specific controller. Mine is the Oculus Touch. And check if the bindings sound right. So haptics are default. Poses, these are the raw poses, so this is not default stuff, that's nice. Skeletons is by default. Skeletons are also necessary for making your fingers move, so don't just throw those away. Otherwise you will have extremely aesthetic hands. And look at that, left thumbstick, left grab, left trigger, right thumbstick, switch POV, yeah, that's a new button. Alright, that's looking good. You will notice that this will not have set up the bindings for every other controller. Like if I go to a Vive bindings, it's pretty much completely empty. So you'll have to do this separately for every controller you want to. I did it for the knuckles as well. So you can see it's set up, except it does not have the Y button action yet. Alright. Well, now that we've got that stuff, let's copy and paste it to our project as well, just to make sure we don't lose it. And now all we need... Oh, I forgot about something, my sincere apologies. There was something else we wanted to get from our project. So go to Unity, Projects, Your Project, then go to Build, Data, Managed, and you should now finally see a SteamVR Actions DLL. So if you are like me and you are wondering where the hell did these people get the SteamVR Actions DLL from, it only built SteamVR DLL for me. Well, that happens when you generate your bindings. So now that we have one, we need to include it. We need to include it in our game data, managed, and just put it here right next to steamvr.dll. You can also make a copy of it into your libs folder. Place it here. Now it's time to update the code in our project. So first things first, let's add the dependency to this new SteamVR Actions DLL. So just go to Dependencies, Add Reference, Browse. This is why it's handy to have a libs folder. SteamVR Actions. Add it to your main project, not to your patcher project. And if you go to assemblies now, we can see that SteamVR Actions is there, which means we can write code regarding SteamVR Actions, which we will start doing at plugin.cs. Now we don't need to do any using whatever, it is all included in valve.vr, even the SteamVR Action stuff. Now what we want to do is, well, first we want to import the hands. So we will do this in our asset loader, which previously loaded a skybox. And all we have to do now is make another game object left hand base, another game object right hand base, and load the assets if it's from the same bundle as before, otherwise you need to load that bundle as well. Load the asset from the bundle and be careful to give it the right path. In this case it should work. Don't forget to append it with a prefab at the end too. Alright, so now is the part where we can just code with this, the fun part. So the last thing we need to do to get this stuff working is in our init SteamVR function, right before we initialize SteamVR, we want to call SteamVR_actions.pre-initialize. This will pre-initialize stuff and make sure everything works correctly. Now this was my previous input test, but we are going to make a new one specifically for our new button. So write SteamVR actions dot default If you have any other action sets, you would have to give another name here, the name of your action set. But I prefer just working with default. Dot, let's check what we have here. Switch POV. That's the action name. And then we want to add a listener. What do we want to listen for? On active binding changed? No. On active change? No. On change? No. On state down or state up? Yes, that's what we want to listen to. We want to listen to when someone presses the button down. So we add this listener and we just give it the following arguments. Let's check what it expects. A function to call and an input source. So let's call the function on switch POV down. And as for input source, this is mainly the hand, so you can specify if it should be only called if it's coming from the left hand or left foot. You will be mainly using this for hands. Left hand, right hand. But we will just do this for any, because you already specified that this is the left Y button. Now we just need to write our onSwitch POV down function. Want to make this a public static void. Want to give it the following arguments. This will be different for non-Boolean actions, by the way. Remember having a pose action here, which as a SteamVR action pose as argument. Alright, well, let's just define this function. On switch POV down, we want to, well, I've already did this for trigger left down. We want to switch our POV and spawn hands. If you don't already have some kind of POV switcher function in your game, you can just leave spawn hands here and delete this part. As for trigger left down, we are just going to go logs write info trigger left down. You also won't need to take care of any debouncing in these functions. It will only call once when it's down, and it will only be able to be called again after it's gone up again. So no need to worry about this rapid firing like a machine gun. Alright, so we've got our functions for onSwitch POV down. Let's implement those functions. I did those in the camera manager. So for the camera manager, switch POV is a special function for my game. We're not going to go too much over that, but we don't really use our hands for it. Now the spawn hands function. For this I made some global variables, some static variables. Public static game object left hand, initialize it to null. Same for the right hand, initialize it to null. And then in our spawn hands, if our right hand does not exist yet, so if it is null, we are going to spawn it. And we spawn it the same way as we spawned the skybox in the previous video. Right hand equals game object dot instantiate asset loader dot right hand base We give it initial 0 vector and identity rotation. And this is important. We also make its parent the VR origin transform. So yeah, so if you have a VR origin somewhere, the parent of your camera, let's say it like this: you want to have the same parent for your hands as you have for your camera, your VR camera, and that is what I am doing here. We do exactly the same for the left hand, except we instantiate it from the left hand base object. Alright, now that that's done, let's see what else we need to do. So we've at the moment when we press this button, it will spawn our hands and also switch our POV. But our hands are not yet told to move. They are parented to something, so if we move around, the hands will also move, but they will not follow our actual hands. For that, we need these two functions. The right hand pose, and we are going to add an onUpdate listener with SteamVR input sources any and as a function update right hand. Same for the left hand, unless you only want to track one hand in your game, but I don't see why you would want to do that. So now we're going to go to update right hand, update left hand. Alright, this is again a public static void in our plugin.cs function class. So what are we going to do now? If our camera manager right hand exists, so if we spawned this hand next to us, then so if it exists, then our right hand transform local position, not position but local position, which is a position relative to our parent or VR origin, will be equal to SteamVR actions default right hand pose point local position. So this way it will always give you the correct local position to match your actual hands. This way, if your VR origin is set up right, you will always see your hands at the right place. I will do the same for the left hand. So if it is instantiated, you're just going to transform it. Yep. And this will get called on every update. This will get called on every tick. So don't put any things in here like spawn the hands, because then you will keep spawning hands every tick. Now one last thing, we did add a switch POV state down listener, but we can also add a state up listener. Give it similar arguments. Again, this code will be available on my repository, which I will link in the description. Might have to go back a commit or two, but this code is available for you to just copy if you want. Alright, so let's make this function. Oops. Make it a public static void. And in this case, we don't really need it to do anything when it's back up. So let's just again write a message to our logs. You don't want to keep this in your final game, because you might get some log spam otherwise, but this can come in very handy for debugging. Switch POV button up is up. Let's see, why is this? Ah yeah, we need to give it some arguments. There we go. And I believe this should be everything. I've already done some extra stuff for grabbing and triggering, but it does not work at the moment. I'm still trying to refine it. At the moment it crashes the game. Yeah, by the way, about that VR origin, in Unity VR mods you can't directly move the camera. So if you want to, let's say, add a running behavior to a joystick, what you will need to do is reparent the camera's transform to a new object you made, and let's call that the VR origin, and then move that VR origin. Give it a new position. That's why I'm also parenting all my hands to this VR origin and stuff. It's an important thing to know. Alright, everything should be built. Let's build again, yes. And now we just need to test VRMaker, binaries. Let's go to Kingmaker, Pepinex, and let's check out what happens. Now let's see, I'm already in VR. Oh. Let us start again. I'm still using a controller at the moment for handling the user interface, but it's at this point that you should be able to replace all the game's controls with VR controls, which makes your setup a whole lot easier to manage. No more fumbling about with an Xbox controller like me. Alright, load game. Let's go to a nice place. Aha, this is a nice place. I've also found out recently with my Pimax that its resolution is a bit too small to properly read the text in this game. So you might want to consider things like that for your mod as well. Might want to move the menus a bit closer, improve performance. Don't do any dynamic resolution scaling, people hate that. Like with Hitman. You know the stuff. Alright, we're in game. I'm going to move around a bit using my gamepad. And now, big moment. Let's grab these controllers, press the A button, nothing happens. Now let's press the Y button. And we've got two beautiful hands as well. So all the code got executed, we are first person, the skybox got added, and we've got two beautiful hands. As you can see, they're at pretty much the right position. So I would advocate for the raw position. And they're automatically following my finger positions. This even works with the knuckles, like full analog finger tracking for the knuckles. Now let's go back using the Y button. And we're back here, but we still got our hands. I did some kerfuffling to make them follow the VR origin point, and well, they did. I can do this, I can do whatever. Of course, they don't collide with each other, they don't really collide with anything at the moment, but that shouldn't be too hard to set up. We can press this button as many times as we like. Well, my apologies, I think the camera just shot through the floor. This is not an issue with the input system, it's just the way I programmed grabbing behavior, so that's something else. No need to worry about it. Go write your code, people. And that's it. This will probably be the final Unity VR tutorial for a while. I would love to continue this series at a later point, but right now I'm going to go back to Deep Rock Galactic for a bit. Maybe make some Unreal Engine 4 tutorials. Thank you again for watching. I really hope you learned something and that you will be able to use this for your own VR mod. So good luck, keep trying, don't let it get you down if you get stuck. You can always ask our buddies at Flat Screen to VR Modding Discord any questions. Alright, see you later.